The worst thing that can happen is to be harassed daily by an obsessed woman. But the risk increases when that person is your best friend's mother. And you may enjoy it to a certain extent, but the price can be very, very high. Matthew and Frank, two best friends, dress up in Matthew's mother's wigs and clothes. They jump on the bed, dance, play music, and smoke, laughing at their own spectacle. They are two teenagers pretending to be someone else for a while, trying to escape from the everyday. Suddenly, Camille Matisse's mother enters. She watches the scene, laughs at the madness, and comes over to put makeup on her son like a woman, as if it were part of the game. She asks them what they are doing dressed like that, and hears that they are going to a party, as if the night were a private joke between them. And she looks at them, half complicitly, half motherly, and lets them leave. That morning, Camille waits for her son to return, feeds the cat, moves around the house in silence, and lets anxiety fill the spaces. The landline rings with a 911 call. She runs to answer it. When she hears the news, her world shatters and she hangs up to cry, but there's no time. She calls her daughter Laura to tell her that Matisse has died in a car accident, and silence falls heavily on the house. Later, Camille arrives at the hospital. Francois, her ex-husband and father of her children, appears and hugs her. She collapses in his arms, unable to stand on her own. Shortly after, they both identify their son's body. They leave the place devastated, their eyes fixed on nothing, as if walking were the only way to withstand the weight of that hallway. Back at home, they find the clothes Matthew will wear for the funeral. The fabrics in their hands cut like knives, and Camille bursts into tears again. Each piece of clothing reminds her of movements, smells, laughter, and nothing is enough to make sense. The day of the funeral, family and friends fill the place, hugging and whispering. Everyone bids the boy farewell and tries to hold on to what is leaving. Then they move to Camille's house for the funeral banquet, where mourning mingles with conversation. She is not prepared to endure the crowd. She stays a while longer in the cemetery, while Francois leaves to attend to the guests. When the place is empty, something breaks. She runs out of the cemetery and gets her car. The engine starts urgently, and the steering wheel becomes an exit. She drives to the scene of the accident. There is Frank, with a bouquet of flowers in his hands. Camille hugs him and asks him to get in the car to take him to the banquet. When they arrive at the house, all eyes are fixed on Frank. He was driving the day of the accident, and guilt follows him through the hallways. Laura sees him, bursts into tears, and makes it clear that she considers him guilty, although at the same time she feels sorry for him. He ashamed looks for an empty balcony and takes refuge in the cold air. A while later, Camille finds him and asks him to go to Matthew's room, where other friends are. The idea is for him to fit in and not be alone. But everything goes wrong when a girl, upset by the loss, throws him out of the room, shouting and pushing him. Frank leaves without arguing, his face burning, until Camille intervenes and calms the situation. The woman decides to remove him from there at once. On the way, Frank tells her how the accident happened. He says he was driving when he lost control. The car overturned. He tried to get out, but his door was locked. When he looked at Matisse, he found him with part of the bodywork buried in his stomach, dying. The words break off and the memory weighs on him. Camille listens, but his body rejects each image as if the story were just another blow. Before leaving him at his house, Camille detours to the cemetery. He asks her to say goodbye to Matthew. Frank stands there in front of the tombstone and cries with a guilt that chokes his chest. 2 weeks later, Camille returns to work at her bookstore. She tries to stick to her routine, serving, tidying up, and briefly smiling at customers she doesn't know. She pretends to feel better, but the empty house tears her apart every night. Sometimes she can't stand being confined and drives to the site of the accident to beat the tree with her hands as if the wood could respond to her. The obsession grows silently and doesn't let up. The next day, she goes to her son's college for a formal retreat a day. She talks to the tutor who hands her Matthew's final paper and assures her that he is one of the best in the class. They tell her that he was a great student with a future, and those words hurt and console her at the same time. She asks about Frank. The professor nods. He's also her tutor, but Frank isn't doing well and hasn't been there for 2 weeks. He also missed a key essay. Camille is alarmed and she thinks he must be sick, but the professor thinks he dropped out of college. She insists anxiously that Frank is a good boy and capable of finishing. With that concern, Camille goes to Frank's house. She sees him unnoticed, working in a construction company, loading and transporting merchandise. She follows him to the place and gets out to find him. She finds him with his father, an older man who put him in that job to support the family. Camille becomes uncomfortable, gets angry with the man for stopping the boy's studies, and leaves, thinking of another way out. The idea begins to take shape at the speed of his discomfort. Then she visits Frank's mother to propose a plan. She says that she will pay for college and give him a job at the bookstore with a good salary so that he can support the family. The offer is presented, a lifeline thrown out to help us. With that help, Frank resumes classes and returns to the halls of the faculty. But his interest does not follow. He leaves the classroom before the end of the hour. Camille, who has remained at the university watching from a distance, notices him slipping away. She takes a deep breath, but the need for control sticks to her skin. She calls him to go out in the car for a drive. With clear intentions, she takes him to the scene of the accident. Halfway there, she asks him to drive. She pushes him to speed up. She demands that he speed up more. He hesitates, brakes, and tries to maintain control, and she yells at him when he doesn't obey. Everything is cut short when the car becomes unstable and is about to crash into the trees. Frank gets out furiously and drives off alone. A thick silence remains that solves nothing. In the following days, Camille returns to the tree at night, lies down next to it, looks at the impact mark, and doesn't move. At 2 a.m., Frank arrives home. He finds his mother asleep in the living room with the landline phone on her lap. He wakes her up carefully. The phone rings. It's Camille. Mother and son agree to say that Frank hasn't arrived. They answer and lie. Camille replies that he knows it's not true because she saw him enter the building from his car. Frank looks out the window and sees Camille's car parked right in front. Camille is no longer a grieving mother. She is an emotional GPS that recalculates every time Frank walks through a door. Therefore, the argument becomes inevitable. Annoyed, he goes out to confront her. He asks her what she wants, why she follows him, why she calls his family at that hour like a stalker. Camille tells him that she was waiting to apologize and give him an envelope. He thinks it is money and rejects it. She clarifies that they are tickets to see Matthew's favorite band, the plan they had together. Frank lets his guard down for a moment, and guilt returns in a different guise. The day of the concert, Frank attends with her. The atmosphere is chaotic. Lights, pushing, shouting. And yet Camille is excited to have him around, almost as if she were getting a part of her son back. Later, they go to Camille's house and order takeout. They talk at the table, trying to avoid memories. The cat appears between her legs. Frank picks it up and tells him that Matthew chose its name after a famous opera. Camille didn't know this and feels the blow of those little lost things. She asks Frank to tell her everything about Matthews. He breaks down in tears, so she comforts him as if he were her own son. On another outing, at Camille's instigation, they stop at a gas station and buy several liters of gasoline. They return to the accident site with the cans to set the tree on fire. The fire spreads quickly and the flames shatter the stillness of the forest. Their clumsy act leaves a mark they can't erase. The trouble they cause is enough to get them arrested. Frank's father and Francois arrive to get them out. Francois pays their bail. Once released, Camille thanks Francois and asks what happened to Frank. He grabs her by the arm and leads her away, annoyed, as if any answer would be useless. A few months go by. At the bookstore, Camille receives an unexpected visit from Frank's parents. They bring back the motorcycle she gave the boy for his birthday. They remind her that there is a restraining order. Camille replies that he hasn't seen him, that he only made a home delivery. For them, that doesn't change anything. They want to protect their son and cut off contact. One afternoon, Camille returns home and finds his daughter Laura cleaning up the mess she's made. Laura has recently given birth, but she took the time to visit her and tidy up the place. Camille sees this as help, but not as an invasion of his privacy. For that reason, he pushes her, reminding her of the baby in her arms. Laura, incredulous and hurt, shouts at him that Matthias died, but that she's still alive. Days later, an unexpected call interrupts the routine. Camille is told that she has to travel to Italy, so she packs a bag and leaves in a hurry. Upon arrival, she takes a taxi and asks to be taken to an inn that is not very frequented. At the front desk, she asks for Frank and identifies herself as the young man's mother. They give her a key, and the hallway stretches towards a decision that seems to have already been made. She enters the room with her bag. There, Frank is sleeping in bed. Camille approaches silently, brushes his hair back from his forehead, and looks at him with a mixture of longing and obsession that leaves no room for anything else. Hurry up, pick one of these videos. I'll make sure no one is parked in front of your house.